Jen Widerberg. Welcome
Hello.
to the LinkedIn Live with Jack Kelly. I'm so glad to see you. I see you on X all the time. You give great advice to everybody. So welcome. And let's start up. Can you just tell the audience a little bit who you are, what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Jennifer Widerberg. I specialize in financial services technology, all from analyst all the way up to executive levels. So I work with investment banks, hedge funds, asset managers, and also any software and services that provide, services to the financial industry.
Now, from my understanding, I have not placed tech people, but I'm very familiar with them because I have the podcast with the Blind Ambition podcast. So I kind of know the tech world. It's hard, right, to find software engineers, software developers, right? Is that one of like the hardest things to do?
Oh, it definitely is. And our clients in particular are always looking for people that have a specific business knowledge, kind of tightly paired with, a specific programming language or, something that they've done specifically. A lot of times we find issues with pricing for different things because that's always kind of breaking. But yeah, I mean, I
don't mean to, when you say pricing, meaning like the salary negotiations or?
Pricing for trades. Right? Like
Okay.
It tends to be very difficult. Yeah.
Oh, wait. So the pricing for trades, so you would place people who
understand how like the fixed income would trade through the system or equities would trade through the system and like all the different things because you're dealing with a lot of data. You're dealing with a lot of things moving all at the same time through this huge system that's basically propped up on a bunch of legacy stuff. It gets crazy.
So so if I understand, because I understand a little bit about Wall Street, so that you're placing some of the people where if it's like a trading firm and they're just trading in and out all day long, and you have to have somebody and find, a software engineer, developer, what have you, to make sure this thing is working so it doesn't blow up, because you're talking about millions and millions of dollars.
Yes,
it goes wrong.
We're talking about critical stuff here, so you really have to do your due diligence to make sure that, you're working with the best people.
So because it's so important to give us a sense of like, what kind of salaries, what kind of people are they that you work with? Are they easy to get along with? Are they crazy? Are they asking for
the people I work with are fantastic. But yeah, no, they're very business oriented, right? So they're very let's get down to business. Let's get this taken care of. What are they looking to do? Here's what I'm looking to do. And if it makes sense, let's talk, so it's very business-like.
How long is the interview cycle for tech people?
It really depends on what position it's for, but, we have it down to a 2 to 3 step process. So it's not too bad. Yeah, it's really not too bad, because I know that there's a lot, in big tech where they kind of string you along for 7 to 8 interviews and it gets kind of like crazy and, lasts for months. The right job here with financial services can really go pretty quickly.
Now, why is it that it goes so much quickly? Because what I'll see a lot of time for white collar professionals, like mid to senior level, no exaggeration, it could be up to 10 people over months and months. And then even at the end, you get ghosted. So like, how is it only 2 or 3? Is it because they're so in need of what you are?
I mean, because usually by the time it gets to us, I mean, it's like absolutely critical, right? I mean, so in other words, you've had a little bit of time to try to tap your own network, right? You've had a little bit of time to try to perhaps get your internal team on it. Now, I mean, this thing is like, you couldn't be in more pain right now. You got to get somebody in there and somebody who's done it before, like right now. So that's why it tends to move quickly.
Now, do you have to be like a hardcore techie, for you to place, or can people have different skills? Maybe data analytics or product manager, things like that. Do you also work with those people?
Yeah, absolutely. I work with those people. But, the one thing I would say is that it's much easier to have, even if you're a product manager, to have a specific other business skill set. Like, hey, I'm a product manager in payments, for example, right? That's much easier, much more specific to be able to kind of navigate and move around.
What I'm seeing, the last I looked at layoffs, FYI, is something like 250,000 tell me if I'm like crazy off, that were laid off in 2023, and that doesn't count like towards the end of 2022.
Yeah.
With that overhang, does that make it easier for you to find talent, or do the people who are from like Meta, Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, they just want to stay in big tech and they don't want to go to like Wall Street firms? What do you see?
I think that it's a couple things.
Mm-hmm.
They are open to taking a look at some other industries for sure, but the pay gap is just so significant that people can't really wrap their minds around that. For example, we could have somebody with 3 years of experience at a Google, for example, making $300,000, and you can check that. We can all
wait, let's pause just so the audience knows that. So 3 years of experience, meaning you're what, 24? All right, so you're 24 and you're making $300,000.
Yeah, $300,000.
Now, is that all in, or is that just the base?
No, I think that's like that was all in.
That'd be
right?
total comp.
Yeah, that'd be total, right? But then all of a sudden you're taking a look and you're seeing some of these guys that you've worked with in Wall Street, in tech, they're making the same money, and that's just crazy because and then you're seeing, people compete for jobs that are just completely mismatched entirely.
So wait. So let's say you have a 24-year-old making 300,000 in terms of salary, bonuses, equity, what have you. And then they go to like Citigroup or Deutsche Bank. Yeah. And then the heads explode at Deutsche Bank when they say, what? How much are you asking for? That's oh my God, that's your life you have to deal with, and you have to explain to them.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, there was a moment where the banks were kind of like, let's interview some of these guys. Let's go ahead and figure it out. Let's see if we can make a place for them. And then it kind of came back with some of my clients in particular that no, this is not going to work. They had the sense that, it was just going to be this kind of stopgap for them until they were able to get the higher paying job. And I think that's understandable for a lot of people.
So what happens? So then is it kind of a stalemate where you have a lot of these big tech people who were laid off or worried to get, laid off, but they just don't want to kind of take that pay cut to go somewhere else?
It's a little bit of a stalemate, but with every challenge, there's going to be an opportunity. Mm-hmm. And I think now is a really interesting opportunity for some of those people who are building to start building on their own while they're waiting something out. I think that now is a good time to at least try it.
When we say building out on your own, what do you mean by that?
Like, maybe even going the solopreneur route for just a little bit, just to test it out. If you're waiting for it anyways, why not?
You say so meaning like maybe if you're a tech person to kind of start your own startup, is that?
Yeah, or you could even start consulting and getting some clients for yourself, just to kind of see what that's like. As well. And then you're picking up some other, business skills that would be critical for you in the long run anyways.
Are you seeing a lot of that where they don't want to take that cut? There's not a lot of jobs maybe in big tech. So they figure, hey, I'll do the consulting, maybe a startup, maybe something different. Is that become common?
I've seen that a few times. I wouldn't say that it would be like the big thing that everybody's doing. I think we're having more people just kind of wait and see at this point.
Yeah.
But it is another route to take that not many people are taking advantage of.
In generally, what's your vibe check of the market? Is it okay? Is it slow? Do you think it'll change? I know you don't have a crystal ball, but any sense of what's happening, what you think will happen?
Well, listen, it's slow for now,
mm-hmm.
and that's to be expected. We're kind of in this weird area that's always traditionally been weird, right? Right before Thanksgiving, right? So you typically after Thanksgiving, things get a little slower, but everything's kind of a little screwy right now. So what's happened in the past is not necessarily going to happen in the future. And what we're seeing is I'm seeing more recruiting roles open up actually. And I'm also hearing from our clients that, there's going to be things coming down the pipeline. Like this is kind of a temporary wait
That's
and
positive. That's good.
freeze type of a situation. And we are going to see some other roles that are coming up because, we've got some businesses that are growing tremendously right now, within, I would say, commodities in particular. So there are going to be some opportunities and some pops for different businesses that are happening, which is exciting.
So I like this. So what can people do if, let's say, the market is kind of slow? And I see this across the board, speaking to recruiters in all sectors, it seems the common denominator, if you're like a white collar professional, mid to senior level, it's rough. It's really tough. No matter what sector, it's challenging. So people who are watching this now, it's not just you, it's happening all over. Now, but I think as Jen is saying, it sounds like you have to be strategic to say, I didn't think about commodities. So like, all right, maybe there's this niche in commodities that's hot that maybe people should start looking, where's the bright spot? Let's go to that.
Yeah. I mean, and there's all kinds of different ways that you can be thinking about building out your network right now too, because typically what you see, and when people come to me in a job search and I ask them, okay, well, how do you usually job search? It's okay. LinkedIn, Indeed, Dice, right? And then I'm always speaking with people about, okay, so where's the human element in here? Where's the human connection in here? And then I have some sheet that's organized by connection, basically, where you're looking at your job search in terms of who you know, who you'd like to know. So we're really kind of making it human driven rather than the other way around.
So do you find it that a lot of candidates, maybe because it was a good job market for a long period of time, that they're like muscles atrophy, so they're not used to it? Is that a common thing that you're like,
that's a super common thing, it's definitely common.
But what do you see? Like, what are some of those things that, like, for you in a way, and this is not like bashing any candidate, it's like, this is helpful because, they want to know that, right? That's the only way they improve. What are there certain things that, like, you say, oh, but don't do this, that you could share with people so they'll know, oh, I didn't realize I was doing it, and yikes, I'm going to stop.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say the number one thing is when people, because everybody kind of hates this question, but guess what? It's coming. It's coming. So you can either kind of hate that or you can prepare for it. They'll ask you, hey, why are you looking to leave, or what's happening, with your job or whatever. And typically you'll see people answer, oh, I'm looking for some sort of growth opportunity. What the heck am I going to do with that? Like, there's nothing I can do with that, right? Like, come on. So what I would really encourage people to think about is, like, what is it that you're actually looking for? Think about the skills that you have that you're walking into this job with, and think about, what this company is offering and how that kind of fits together. Then, because what you want to do, your answer to that question should automatically just have, somebody have a check mark go off in their mind mentally and move on to a better question, to a different question. You don't want that. You don't want any sort of doubt in the back of their mind about, is that what, what was that? I'm not quite sure if that was like the right thing here. Right. So the more specific you can be, the better in those situations. Let's take the growth example, right? Hey, I'm looking for a growth opportunity, right? Then if you say something like, hey, I already have experience with fixed income trading, but, I think that this opportunity would give me exposure to equities, or this would give me exposure to, something else that you just don't have experience with, another language, a business, a broader scope, something. So that's what I would say for that.
That makes a lot of sense. It sounds like, and tell me if I'm wrong about this, Jen, it sounds like people, I'll tell you what I see from
Sure.
When things are good, people get complacent, and they'll come to an interview and they're almost like, what? I have to show you my resume. Don't you know who I am? Don't you know what I do? And it's this weird thing, like, well, like, no, you got to tell me about it. I gotta understand it. And it's almost like they feel because things were so good that they should just step in and get a job. Now it's shift, and a lot of people aren't shifting. So what you're saying is like, okay, you got to go back to basics, and you can't just answer, oh, I want growth, because like, all right, what the heck does that mean?
Right.
Similarly, Jen, like, how do you feel about this? This drives me crazy too, with like the green banner on LinkedIn. Like, it's cool that you have that, fine, but just say what job you want. Don't say, I'm looking for, like, what am I supposed to do with that? Right.
Yes, that 150%. And I find that that's what's difficult about probably that's what people feel because they're not reaching out to their own network. It's because they're not being specific about what they want, and they're not like putting it out there. Right. So
now, why do you think that happens? Because you would think these people that you're placing, they're experienced, they're well paid, they're very highly compensated. They're working for top-notch companies. How come is it just like we're saying, a little complacent, but now they got to try harder and they're not really used to doing that? Or
I mean, and I think it's just a little bit about marketing yourself too. I mean, especially on social media, you know, and understanding how people are actually searching for you. You know, because if you feel like you have some sort of name, or you feel like you have some sort of something else, then, you know, you're not necessarily trying to optimize for other people finding you, but, you know, you're really increasing the surface area of luck if you're, you know, thinking about and optimizing for the way that people will find you with appropriate keywords and other things in your profile.
Yeah, I like where you go with this, Jen. So what, you know, for the people watching this now and we watch it later, what are some steps that they could do to get noticed? And also, should there be certain platforms that they should be on, whether it's LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram or X, you know, and how can they position themselves to get noticed?
Well, I think, you know, a lot of people, I mean, most people that I know and that I've worked with before are on LinkedIn. You know, so as awful as it can be sometimes, it's a great place to be able to at least see contacts, keep in touch with your contacts, see other people's contacts, see who you have in common. And as far as, you know, getting specific goes, like if you're an engineer, I want to see, you know, what specific languages you're working with right now, you know, because sometimes what'll happen is you're doing a search and people will tend to just put every single skill that they've had, you know, because they'll open up an account, for example, when they graduate from school. It'll have everything in there. So that when you go to search for something, you know, it's pulling up people who don't have appropriate experience. And then, you know, their time is wasted. My time is wasted. You know, it's not okay. Right. So if we can get specific about what it is that you can do, what it is that you want to do, it'll be much better.
Do you notice any other things that job seekers do that now, as we have, like you said, this time period going into the holidays where it's clunky, but there's still opportunity and you still have the chance? Sometimes what I've seen, you know, they want to hire, right, you know, get somebody before the holidays because they know it's going to slow down.
Yeah.
Any other things that people should do to get themselves noticed? Let's for LinkedIn so that they could find you, you know what I mean? And then also what you should do to reach out to folks.
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely. So, you know, I'd really, just to get noticed, I would just make sure that, you know, you have some sort of specific business that you work with, some sort of specific technology that you work with, you know, and then titles and things like that can be different from company to company. So really understanding, you know, the difference between kind of a functional title and like the corporate title. So the functional title would be like, what is it that you're actually doing? You know, are you product manager? Are you like, what's happening? And then there's the corporate title. A lot of times people fall to the corporate title, which, you know, helps for leveling, but it doesn't tell me anything about what you're doing. Right. So I would tend to say that focus on what you're doing, because that's going to be the most applicable to you getting the job.
So it sounds like couple of things to just kind of bracket it. You need, when you're looking for a role and you're answering interview questions, you just can't wing it. You can't just be, hey, I want growth.
No.
I want to try something different. You have to be very specific in what you want to do, because if you're not specific, the hiring manager interviews, they're not going to know what you really want, and it's just wasting, right? It's just wasting time. So you want to be
it's
like,
a huge waste.
right?
Yeah.
So you got to be really specific. And then it sounds like the same thing with your LinkedIn profile. You want to be really like here's what I do, here's what I'm about, here are all my skills, here are all the different, in your, all the tech skills that you have, and here's what I want to do next. So that if a recruiter is searching for you, or an HR person or talent acquisition is searching for you, they're going to see it and go, wow, perfect. This is it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then just kind of further, because this will help not only within LinkedIn, but then also just kind of in interviews, is I always like to take the people that I'm working with through a 3-step process for really kind of getting crystal clear about what they can do on the job, because doing your job and explaining your job are 2 different things. Right. So we want to make sure that we're really taking the time to explain it in a way that can be given to somebody else and can be repeated to somebody else, because that's how the whole hiring process is going to work. Somebody has to listen to what you're saying, and then they have to repeat that to somebody else. Right. So we want to make it as easy as possible for everyone in the process. So what I always recommend doing is think about 3 things. The first thing is what the situation was like before you started in your job, what you specifically did, because they're not going to be hiring your whole team in most cases. We all know it's a team sport. You're not taking all the credit for saying I did this, right? And that's an important thing to note, because a lot of people feel uncomfortable doing that. And then also the last thing, who did it help? Any sort of metrics that you have surrounding that are great. Like, hey, we saved this much time, this much processing, this, anything that you can say that and point to that it was some sort of improvement there. But you got to really think about who it helped, which is great.
I got to tell you, I love that. I was just taking notes. I was writing down, because I'm going to steal that from you, Jen. So
Okay.
put it in an article down the road. So it's, you want to find out like the first part I didn't catch. So what happened, or what was going on?
What happened before you started, right? There's a reason that you were hired. There was a need, right? What you specifically did. And then,
what you specifically did, this would be like, if let's say you're in sales, you could give like, I beat quota by such and such each time, like really have, if you could, like really numbers and facts to back it up, right?
That would be more along the lines of like who it helped, right? But
okay.
So the step number 2 is like, hey, these are the steps that I specifically took. Right?
Okay.
Like this is what I did with this. Is like, I was cast into this environment, and this is what I did, and this is what happened. Right. So I know that a lot of people like the STAR method. I feel like, the 4, then you get too much in your head and it gets a little crazy. I really like this kind of 3 steps.
I like this. I'm seriously, I'm today's years old when I found this out, that this is cool. I like, and then the third one is like, who did it help? Because then you want to show that, hey, I made a difference, right?
Well, but it also shows that you weren't just kind of, shoving work along, as it were, right? Like, you understand the impact of what you were doing, which is another reason why, a lot of people get passed in interviews at times, is because they don't give a sense of, hey, I was thinking outside the box here. It was, so it's important to be able to demonstrate that.
Yeah, see, that's right. Because if you say that in an interview, if someone was interviewed say that to me, I'm going to realize, wow, they came, they saw some, there's a challenge, there's a problem, there's an issue, you dealt with it, you made it better, and here's what you're doing now, and this is how it improved for the company, and here's for the bottom line. So it's like, all right, that's super helpful. That's really helpful. Now, how is that different? You mentioned about the STAR system. What
I think there's 4 things
right.
that you need to, the situation, task, achievement, result. I'm not even sure like what they are, to be honest with you. But like, I just remember looking at it and thinking, that's too much. It's kind of overkill. And what you want in the interview also is to be as concise as possible and repeatable as possible. And if I'm going on, off on a tangent, that's not really useful for anybody.
Now, when you say repeatable, does that mean within the same interview or repeatable as you meet other people in the interview process? You
Repeatable
won't have the
because
same.
Yeah, exactly. Because you need other people that you've interviewed with to repeat what you've said as clearly as possible.
I'm with you.
What
That's
needs
exactly,
to happen.
that's how I would coach that's what I say to all like the candidates, because you want to be consistent. So then when they compare notes, because like what I've noticed, and it sounds a little different than what you do, because like they have to so many people, like literally 6 to 10 people.
Oh my God.
Think about getting 6 to 10 people to like agree on a movie or where to go out to eat. It's almost impossible.
No, forget it.
It's crazy. So this way, if everybody says the same thing when they compare notes, everyone has the same thing. So like, oh, okay. And it makes it easy.
Yeah. It's just, it's important that it can be broken down that simply.
Did you know, do you find out what candidates will say to you? Well, I don't want to say it because I already told Jack this. I don't want to repeat it to Jen.
Yes. And like, I say that's the test.
Yes, you got to repeat it. Yes. It's so funny because it counterintuitively, they think, oh my God, they're going to think I'm just saying the same thing again and again. It's like a comedian, right? They go up and they give their stuff. They don't make everything up each night. They have the same routine, right?
That's right.
You're a band, you play the same songs. You don't stop playing crazy different songs or go into different genre. That's not what they're there for. So you got to be like on message all the time, right? Mm-hmm. And kind of go back to another thing. Oh my God, this cracks me up so much. This just kills me. When you ask somebody what you mentioned this before, what do you do? And then they can't give an answer. They give this like sprawling all over the place. And it's like, how can you not just say, oh, I run a search firm, specialize in compliance, and I place mid to senior level compliance executive on Wall Street. Boom. How can you not? And so it sounds like you have the same issue where you can't clearly articulate what they're looking for.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's hard because it goes back to that, doing your job and explaining your job are two completely different things. And, to have to really kind of market yourself when you just go into work every day is that's a completely different muscle.
Well, speaking of that, what in a time like this, right? We're in between heading into the holidays,
Mm-hmm.
The market, the economy, the world, everything is a little crazy.
Yeah.
So what can you do if maybe you don't want to look for a job, but see how you can advance within your organization? How can you also get noticed, raise your hand for something, kind of schmooze to get in somewhere? Like, have you had any success or dealings with people who try to do that?
Well, the thing of it is I found that the people who really key in on how their manager is going to get promoted and what their manager's, KPIs are the people that are going to fare the best, right? So you really want to make sure that you're in a situation where you're making your manager's job easier at this point. And you're really going to want to make sure that, if there's any efficiency that you can gain at all, be it AI, be it whatever, that you're making people, aware of that you're making your manager look good. Those are the things that you're going to want to do right now.
Would you recommend, let's say you're my boss, for me to go to you and say, hey, Jen, hey, how can I help you? We're going, maybe this is happening in our organization. What can I do to make your life better? What would you suggest? How can I help? How can I make something happen? Is that okay? Or does that could come out cringy? Or like, what do you think? Is that something to do or not to do?
I think the sentiment is right directionally.
Okay.
But I would almost kind of, again, I would kind of focus it a little bit, right? I would say, hey, listen, what are the challenges that you see coming up? Right. So what are the challenges that you're seeing? Like how, and then not almost like how you can help, but then think of something, right? It's much easier for your boss to kind of be like, oh, okay, to think of what you've thought of and say, no, that's not right, or yes, that's right, versus them having to come up with something as well. Right.
You know what? That makes so much sense, because I think we all tend to do that. I tend to do it, I guess, because I did it in asking these questions, and that you want to be very specific in your ask. right? So you just don't want to be general. Oh, how can I help? Because help you. All right.
And everyone's going to be like, oh, no, we're good. We're good.
So you might have to say, hey, I'm very good at I'm making this up, like data analytical stuff.
Yeah. Or I've noticed XYZ, which I saw is important to your KPIs, right? Like, so you've noticed something that you know is going to be important to them, that you know is going to be on the radar for their boss, right?
That's
and
good.
that you're trying to be helpful.
Oh, you're good. All right, wait, we need something. What other things talk about internally for the people who you could still look for another job, but you could hedge your bets. And while you're looking for another job, try to advance where you are. Any other like tips, what to say, what to do to get noticed, to try to get to that next level, or maybe even just get a lateral to try something different?
Well, that's where the human element comes back in, right? I mean, so you want to be making sure that you're communicating with other people, and you're hearing what it is that they're doing, hearing where it is that they're, seeing challenges, researching different ways to kind of solve it. If you really go in as a problem solver, everybody's going to want to work with you. Because everybody wants somebody who's going to be able to take some sort of initiative, and everybody wants somebody who's going to, be a solid team player.
Would you say, given the battle, remote work, hybrid, work from home, to go into the office 5 days a week so that you get noticed and people see you and that you have that proximity bias because you're there? Is that something that people should do, even if they want to be home and they don't want to go to work? What do you think?
That's a really tough question. That's a really tough question. Because I feel like it gets to so many different levels of like where you're at, with your family and, community and stuff like that.
That's true.
I would never, say, hey, get your butt to the office for 5 days a week if like that doesn't fit with that doesn't fit. Most of my clients, I think the worst of them is that 4 days a week in. Right. So everybody else is pretty much, 2 to 3 days in. So, yeah.
What do you see like when, clients and candidates come to you? What's the feel now? Is it more 3 days a week in the office? Like what are you seeing that's become the norm?
I'm seeing more, 2 to 3 days
in the office
is what I'm seeing in office. Yeah. Which is, that's great.
Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, pretty much, or?
Yeah, it would be.
Out of the office, let's say to get noticed, we talked about a little earlier. Let's say on LinkedIn, would you suggest you target, let's say, hey, here are the companies that I'd be really interested in, and send out, LinkedIn messages to, whoever's running these companies. Maybe somebody, or someone who knows somebody, to get in front of them. Maybe writing things, maybe even doing a video. What do you?
Absolutely. What happened the other day, and I thought it was really smart. A job seeker reached out to me to get on my radar, and they gave their background on a Loom video, which you can totally do for free. And I thought that was really smart. That was the first and only Loom video that I'd gotten. And guess what? If I had a job for him or something else like that, that would be the first person that I would call for it.
When you say a Loom video, for people who are not aware, like myself, what exactly is a Loom video?
So sorry. Okay, so it's a video. It's a platform that you can make videos and then send them out, right? So he had used this platform called Loom, loom.com, and he had just sent me a message with this video of him explaining what he can do. And I thought that was great. I thought that was fantastic.
No, is it easy to use?
I've even used it. Yeah.
Because I really haven't seen people do that, but that's actually even a better reason to do it, because if everyone uses it, then after a while it's like, I'm sick of it. But
I've gotten one.
Right. But if you're using it and not a lot of others, you're going to stand out. So what is it? It's almost like giving your elevator pitch, sort of.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. So now imagine we're going to go back to the 3 things and what you would want to do is think about what you're most proud of accomplishing. Make sure it's recent. Give the three things that we discussed before, right? Like what was happening before, what you specifically did and who it helped, put that in an elevator pitch, send it, right? And then I would recommend, because there's a lot of people in talent acquisition and human resources right now who are they're super overworked. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. So I'd recommend, in addition to sending something to them, perhaps send something to a hiring manager as well, right? So that they can help shepherd that process. Otherwise, you're sending it to somebody who's super overworked right now.
It makes sense. Would you also try to do this? Like 6 degrees of separation. What is it? Kevin Bacon, 7 degrees or whatever that is, to find somebody at that company that either or you have a close friend or a loose tie that knows them. And then whether it's the Loom video or just to get your resume or LinkedIn profile in front of that person, almost like cutting in line. So you get, so they get to see you. Is that something you would advocate for people to try out?
Listen, I mean, in this sort of environment, you gotta try to use, any sort of advantage that you possibly can. And I would recommend that for anybody.
Because sometimes that helps out, right? You get somebody
it definitely does.
If you get, you probably see this as well. I'll post something where, let's say a job on LinkedIn, and you could easily get several hundred resumes, and you just get so overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have somebody who could take that resume and bring it right to the boss, or the right person, it makes their life easier, because now they don't have to sift through 100 resumes. You take
right.
a really good recommendation. They'll say, okay, let's meet Jen first.
And you're not just a resume anymore then at that point, right? So it like humanizes the paperwork in a way. So just getting back to that point too, of really adding that human element on the candidate side. I think that it's good to be able to do that, get more human, both on the client side and the candidate side.
Yeah. Speaking of like human element, like what would you suggest to people who, either are looking to, grow within the organization, finding a new job, but just hitting brick walls? Like, how do you cope with that, day after day? Because I know there's so many people who are so frustrated, and they're losing self-confidence. They're losing self-esteem because they start thinking, what the heck did I do wrong? And it hurts their mental health. And then you've probably seen this. So then when you go interview, you're not your best, because you're just feeling like, oh, this is just a waste of time again. And the manager interview feels it. And then it doesn't work out.
Yeah. So, and then they come across as very low energy.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's important to, that's important. The tonality and energy that you bring is very important. People pick up on that.
How can you do that? Like when you're beaten down a little bit?
Yeah.
Do you have any way, maybe for yourself, like if you get a little bummed or something, how do you turn it around to try to get that energy up, to get that excitement up when you really like, when it's hard to do? Any tricks of the trade?
So I'm a big Scott Adams fan. Okay. And he has a reframe for this that I feel like is wonderful. So when you're kind of thinking about that and you're kind of feeling bad about things in general, right? So what you want to try to do is put as much good stuff and good activity in your mental shelf space as possible. And then all of a sudden, once you're in action doing something else, the little negative voice that you're hearing just completely fades away. So you want to try to, put as much good stuff in that mental box as possible to just crowd it out.
So I like that concept. That's really, so instead of just ruminating of like everything that went wrong with the last interview process, your awkward conversation with your boss, and it's going in a loop in your head. Instead of that, replace it with something positive that you've done, some achievement, some goal, something positive.
And it doesn't even have to be like something super big, right? Like it can be something, and you can add things to it, as well. Like, oh, I went for a nice walk. It's beautiful outside. Like you can do all these little things that you do to bring yourself energy and to get yourself out of that funk. Every little thing counts,
I'll give you an example. what I've done a lot. So let's say with recruiting, for
Mhm.
people who may not be so aware, we fail way more than we succeed. You
Yes.
have to call, get in touch with 100 people. No, 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 no.
Yeah.
And so you got to get really used to like all those no's. And sometimes let's say, oh my gosh, this person's got a great offer. They're going to take the offer. And then all of a sudden, like, oh, sorry, Jack, I'm taking a counter offer. I'm not going. And you're like, oh, all this time and effort. And to give you a little inside baseball, if you're a contingency recruiter, that means you don't get anything for all the time and effort you put in. So it really crushes you. So what I do is I just like say, I like walk when you're in an office, pre-COVID, walk outside, go to maybe the men's room, throw some cold water in my face, whatever. And then I just say, like, that's it. Whatever happened in the past, now it's over. I'm not going to even think about it. It's done. Day one, complete fresh slate. I'm starting from scratch. And I just, and if it creeps up in my mind, I just push it out. No, it's over. That's over. I can't change it. It happened and I'm moving forward. So it's like, that's one of my like little hacks that I try to just, when things go wrong, to just stop it, close the door on it, and then just fresh start.
Yeah.
Is that good? Do you think that makes sense?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Now, it's so funny because I think I saw you majors in psychology, right?
You did. Yeah.
So
Psychology,
did I.
Oh, did
Which
you
is,
really?
yeah.
Oh, interesting.
And I find out, I think it's really came in handy as a recruiter, because I definitely see it with you, because you're really thinking through not just, hey, I'm getting someone a job, but the whole mindset to get a job and what to do and how to do it and how to come across, what to not to say, what to say. So I think that helps. That probably helps you without even, I don't know if you know it or you feel it or you just do it now organically, but I could see where that comes from.
Yeah, yeah, I've been told that before. But yeah, I think it's hugely helpful just to understand, how it is that people are thinking, how it is that they're relating, and kind of how the environment sets that up too, through sociology. So I really enjoy that kind of interplay between the individual and the environment.
Is there, not to be all doomy and gloomy, but let's say the market is still going to be bad for a while, and generally not just tech, not Wall Street, but just going to be a bumpy ride, right?
Yeah.
What, and this is not a fair question to ask, but do you have any ideas like what maybe people should start thinking? Should they maybe think about going back to school and learning something new? Would it be trying to pivot to a new career, start over, be a solopreneur? What do you think? Are those options?
I think that there's a few different things people could do, right? But I think that again, to go back to Scott Adams in 2013, he created this concept of the talent stack, right? So you can take like your base skill, which you're really good at, and that really well, and in about an hour a day, you can learn the principles and kind of the basics behind some other skills that would add on top of that would make you super valuable. So just imagine that, you're an engineer, but then you understand some business, but then you also understand how to negotiate. You understand some sales, you understand, social media, you understand, a few other different things. You're good with AI, for example, in addition to all these other things. Like you're going to have more choices as to where you're going to go next. Not only within an organization, but if you wanted to try to start something on your own too, you're making yourself valuable in two places. And again, we're increasing the surface area of luck to find us, which is all you really want to do. You never have to be, 100% in doing that. You just need to be able to increase the surface area of luck to find you.
That's great advice. That makes so much sense, because if, let's say, you have the time permitting, just like we say, going to the office, if you don't, you have young kids, it's hard to do and all that. But if you have the time to really cultivate different skills so that when you put it together, you could be unstoppable, or you have skills to kind of branch off into different areas.
Yes.
And you don't have to start from scratch.
And then you can pivot easy, because, but then the real beauty of this is when all these things kind of blend together and they're combining, you're creating something that hasn't been created before, right? So this is not something that you're going to be able to plug into AI and it's going to be able to do. You're combining all of these things together, to craft something unique, to craft something original, and to craft something, quite frankly, interesting for yourself.
That's awesome. You mentioned AI. What do you like? Are you experimenting with different AI platforms? What do you think? Is that going to be good for recruiters, good for candidates? What do you think?
I feel like for the use cases for it have been primarily, from what I've seen, have been primarily around sourcing, because sourcing teams seems to be like the thing that takes people the longest, the easiest thing to be able to sell. Because there's a real ROI in saying, hey, it only took us, an hour to find this person versus like, a week-long search or something. So those are real numbers. And I feel like that's why a lot of those platforms are getting funding. But, I feel as though there's something a little bit lost, and that it's probably better for something like new grads and like high volume recruiting. I would think that like for the more niche type of stuff, I just don't see it right now. But I experiment around with AI. I play around with it, just to be able to get some of my thoughts out, but then also see how they should not be written. In other words, like, so I'll test it and be like, okay, so that's what it would sound like if AI wrote it. So let's go ahead and refigure this one out.
Now, Jim, what about this for job seekers? Do you think it would be helpful for them? So let's say they're going to go, they want to use a recruiter. First of all, they could check out Jen and see everything about her, right?
Yeah.
Then let's say you want to go to, you're thinking of going to Citigroup to do such and such a thing, then use that to say, okay, what is Citigroup? What is Citigroup all about? Like, where, what's happening? What's, how's their financial situation? Are there layoffs, and get a whole picture. So this way, and I'm going to adopt kind of what you're saying, is to really be very specific in things. So then when you go for an interview and they say, because here's another interview question, when they say, hey, what do you know about our company? And a lot of times people just shrug. I don't know. It's a good company.
Because they've applied to like 50 different jobs and like they weren't even sure if they were going to hear back. So they didn't even bother looking at anything.
So then you could kind of give a whole thing. Oh, Citigroup was founded in such and such a day, and here's what they do, and blah, blah. And then but you could really be able to articulate. So the interview goes, wow, you were really interested in Citi. This is, I've never seen someone so passionate, right?
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, also what I found is that it's interesting for actually getting interview questions, right? So in other words, you can like plug in the job description and then say, hey, listen, I'm going to be meeting with, the director of engineering or something, right? Say, hey, if you were a director of engineering and you're interviewing for this job and you plug it in, then you can possibly get some questions that you would be asked and then prepare to answer those. So that's another thing that you can use it for as a job seeker.
That's good. So we're giving like a big homework assignment for people, right? So that during this, clearly, if you're looking for a job, you keep doing that. If you want to advance with you do that. But then just in case, have other things, build a skill stack, and have other things. So this way, I think this gives you more confidence too. So you're not just like, oh my God, what am I going to do now? Because you have a bunch of, balls in motion that are going on.
And you have the positive momentum of moving forward every day. Like, okay, I'm going to be learning writing today, for example, right? Like, so you can really see where the positive momentum can kind of take away some of the angst that you might feel.
How about this? Let's maybe this could be like, we could wrap this up in a way that what I think happens is that it's easy for people to go in interviews and just go through the motions. And I think people have to find a way to get themselves amped up, to get themselves pumped up. It shouldn't have to be this way, but like, this is what works. Because if you go into an interview and you're just blah, even if you're a genius and you're fantastic and you went to Harvard and Yale, JD, and an MBA at Wharton and all that, but you come across just like, blah, it just doesn't work, right? It just blows up. So would you suggest like just to find ways to get excited, to get pumped up, to get motivated, to get, so when you go into that interview, they see, wow, this person is just dynamic.
Yeah. I mean, I really encourage people to kind of, work with the recruiter or work with somebody who is in the field of marketing for different marketing in general, right? So you want to talk to them about kind of how you're coming across, what is happening. I mean, because this is something that I do for the candidates that I work with all the time, and they can't thank me enough, because when they come to me, it's like this sometimes.
Yeah, exactly, right. And it's like,
right.
This is not going to go over well. They're not
right,
gonna...
right. But you know what? Like once people understand that, and once people see that,
yeah,
I got to give people credit. Like they can fix it right away, but it's not in awareness to even think about.
Yeah, and this is why we do this kind of stuff, because because sometimes it's, once you hear that, you're like, oh, duh, of course I should do it, but you didn't, and you just need someone to remind you, oh wait, you have to, you have to do that. Like, I can't tell you how many times I have someone come in, let's say again, pre-COVID, when you're face to face, and they just stone face look at you. It's like, can you smile a little bit? Can you show emotion? This is very super uncomfortable. Can you just be yourself and just talk? And and sometimes I will say that, and then they open up, and then it's fine. Then it's fantastic. Then you have a normal conversation like we're having now.
Exactly. I mean, let's be honest though, like interviews are just super awkward situations.
Yes.
So I totally get it. But you have to realize, and maybe this will help amp people up as well. You're not the only one interviewing for the job, right? So if I'm comparing one person who's talking like this and another person who is a little more animated, and they're similar skills, similar credentials. I mean, I'm going with a person with energy who can get that point across every time. So it's just something to kind of keep in mind, be cognizant of, check yourself for it. Even if you don't have, somebody that you can reach out to kind of do this with, record yourself on the phone, go to ChatGPT, get those questions, answer those questions, and see where your energy level is at. See if you can amp it up.
I love that. It makes, because sometimes you feel like when you hear yourself, like if I, listen to this afterwards, I'll go, oh my God, I sounded terrible saying this, or wow, that was really bad. But then you learn from it, and you're like, okay, I'm going to make sure I don't do it again. And
everything's a test. If you kind of like reframe everything as a test, then it like takes the pressure and embarrassment out of it.
Wow. So you kind of gave this like master class. Like we hit on some, it was like rapid fire. Like you're like giving advice. Anything maybe we didn't bring up that you feel, whether for a job search, for networking, that maybe I didn't ask you that you'd like to share with people?
No, I think the last remaining thing that I always like to kind of cover that drives me nuts is when people, and you'll see it now that I'm going to say it, you're going to see it everywhere. Okay. When people say research the company before the interview, I mean, what the heck are you even talking about? Okay. So I'm going to Google and, see all these basic things about the company, and then what? Right? Like we need to get to the point where we're researching things that make sense, that lead to direct questions of things, right? Like, because sometimes just knowing some of the things that you can basically Google, they don't translate into a question that's useful at all, right? So just make sure that you're really looking at, if you're working with like a public company, for example, because I work in financial services, you need to know the bottom line. You need to know what's going on financially with the company. Don't go into it like, eyes blind, right? There's financial reports that are required for these companies that have to be filed with the SEC. They're called 10Ks. You need to check those out and see what's on them. I like to point people to the risk category on the 10Ks in particular, because these are things that the companies themselves have thought about, like, hey, this is going to be a threat to our business potentially, or this is happening potentially. So now you can go in those interviews. Hey, I noticed, I noticed that this was identified as an issue. So like, where are we at with this? Like, what's happening with this? So these are things that you can do to kind of elevate yourself above just saying, oh yes, your corporate, this is what you say about your corporate culture, right? Like, so this is going to hit to the business.
I love that, because that's such a great flex. If you go into the interview and you pull something out of their 10K or their financial statement and you just do it nonchalant. So it shows that you really did your homework, you're really interested, you're really knowledgeable, and you're not just going to the interview just for the interview. That
right. Like you've done your research, like, oh, hey, and then if you look at some of the growth trends for the company as well, say, yeah, hey, I've noticed that you're growing in this particular area, and I'm really interested in this particular area. Like that, how much better does that sound than like, I'm looking for a growth opportunity, or I'm looking for, whatever else. If you're being specific about what it is that you want, you're more likely to get it.
That's I think this is the biggest for me personally. Jen, the biggest takeaway is like being very specific about it, because I'm thinking a lot of times I probably don't do that, and that's a mistake. But it's cool once you brought, like the same thing, you bring something up and now you're like, because yeah, can I help you to the boss? Oh, it's going to go nowhere. But if you could kind of give a plan of action of what to do, then that's helpful. So like to be very specific, what you want to achieve, what you want to do with your career, how much money you want to make, how you want to build your future, just really do that. And then I think probably, does that help too with like making it happen? Not to get all woo woo, but like, then you could kind of almost manifest it, because like, here's what I want. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to be. This is the person I want to become. This is, the kind of the role, I desire. And you're very specific about it. So you're not just kind of floating around. You're like tunnel vision.
Yeah. I mean, so again, it's just all about increasing that surface area of luck to find you. So, doing those little things every day to make sure that you're just moving in that positive direction is really, what I'd like to see.
Well, that's fantastic. I love this. This is great. It's just so much. Boy, this is something like people would have to watch this a couple of times over to get all the different, things that you offer. For people who want to find you, what's the best? Is it LinkedIn? Is it X, or where?
LinkedIn is the best way, but I'm always on X too, because I love that X is such. I get such good ideas all the time that kind of like flow in from X. But yeah, LinkedIn is great.
So they can find you on LinkedIn, and how, like, what, through your company? What's the best way that they can?
Directly through my profile page is great. Which it was on the event for today. So I'm available there. You can book calls directly with me. I offer all kinds of, different resume services. I offer, one-on-one coaching. I offer consult calls for clients that are looking to really humanize their process too, who want their candidates to have a better experience and, what's happening out there right now as well.
That's great. So in addition to the recruiting aspect, you'll help people out with everything we talked about here.
Yes.
In terms of giving them guidance and advice.
Yeah, it's been hugely helpful for a lot of people. I just coached a couple of people who got multiple offers. After we spoke, came to me. I'm coming in second best. I don't know what's happening, and I was like, okay. Tell me what you're saying to these questions. Yeah. And you know what? Fix them right away. Offers came. So it works, but sometimes you just need feedback, and that's all it takes.
Well, fantastic. Jennifer, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And the advice is priceless. It's fantastic. Definitely hit her up with that offer to check out, talk to her, if you have questions or you need help or you need guidance. And I think that this is, I love doing this because it's a challenging time. I think we all know it.
Yeah.
But we're able to kind of say, hey, here are things we could do. So you don't have to be a victim. You don't have to be like, woe is me. Oh my God. Like, hey, tactical advice that you could do and take action on, which is great.
And you know what? Like there's never been a better time in history right now to learn and to learn quickly, and you can do it.
Excellent. On that positive, well, thank you so much, Jen.
Yeah.
And thanks.
Thanks so much.
I'm so glad you came on the show.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
Pleasure.
Bye-bye, everyone.